Welcome to Momentum Makers, where we talk about the movers, shakers, and game changers in the real estate industry. Joining me today is Tiffany Banks, CEO of Nevada Realtors.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So much to talk about today.
A lot.
There's a lot going on in the industry.
There is?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard.
I haven't heard.
No, you haven't heard?
No. This is a relaxing time in the industry.
Yeah, super chill.
Okay.
Nothing's changing. Nothing's being upset. 100 years of tradition is not being turned over. So we're fine. We're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
You and I have had a chance to get to know each other over the years. And you didn't start in real estate. Tell me a little bit about your journey of how you came from where you started to being the CEO of Nevada Realtors.
Okay, so I grew up in Reno, and when I left, I went to Arizona State, and I thought I will never move back to this city, although I loved growing up here. You know, I just felt like there were so many bigger things that I wanted to achieve. And so I went to Arizona State and then lived in Australia. Had an opportunity to study abroad. And then I had a lot of really interesting jobs. I had my own spokes model company. And as part of that, we had major clients like Anheuser-Busch, Skoal Chewing Tobacco, NASCAR, the PGA Tour.
That's awesome.
And we traveled around for many, many years representing all of these major brands. And what I've always loved is people. Like whatever I was going to end up doing, it had to involve people. So you wouldn't think law, like being a lawyer, is like a lot of paperwork. But I'm like, if I'm going to take the law path, which I ended up going to law school in San Diego, and then moving to LA for several years. I worked for the Secret Service
I didn't even know that.
when I lived in San Diego. A lot of counterfeit money there.
Okay.
So learned a lot about that, and then moved to LA for a couple years, and moved back to Reno for what I thought was going to be a year.
Okay.
And convinced my siblings, I'm like, if I'm moving back there, you guys are going to move with me.
What year was that?
This was in 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Okay.
So I moved back here, and I mean, it was great coming home and then having family around. Obviously, all my brothers moved back, and I was about to leave when I met my husband.
Okay.
And he's from here as well. And so he's like, you are not going anywhere. And, you know, it actually, like raising your kids in this community with family and friends. And there's so many amazing people that have moved here. I think that our economy is amazing. Like any of my friends that come visit from California, they're like, Reno's a cool place. Like the vibe here. And I think it's only getting better. And so how I ended up in real estate law, was I told one of my friends from high school, she's a lobbyist. She's actually the lobbyist for Nevada Realtors.
Okay.
I said, if I stay here, I need a really interesting law job. I said, I don't want to work in criminal defense. I don't want to work in family law. I don't want to work in civil litigation. I named off basically every area of law. And so she goes, well, if there's an opportunity to work for the realtors, I think that'd be a really great fit for you. And so contracts was my strong suit.
Okay.
But I actually knew nothing about real estate law when I started. So I just started reviewing like all of the forms, and I just read chapter 645 till I would fall asleep, and NAC 645 and chapter 118A. And again, what I liked when I started was my first job at the Nevada Realtors was legal information line. So somebody would call with a question, and we would give an opinion, not legal advice, but oftentimes it was where in the law is how much security deposit can we hold, or if somebody moves out and doesn't tell you and you have to store their items, how long do you have to store their items for? And so slowly but quickly, I really started to understand and learn real estate law and association world. And I think once you have experienced like association world, especially the Realtor Association, because we do so many incredible things, it seemed like such a perfect fit for me. And I quickly moved into the general counsel position because the CEO got promoted and a few general counsels didn't work out. And it was during a legislative session that I got thrown in. And again, knowing really nothing about legislative session, but knowing that I can read the law, that I could articulate our position. And I just had a passion, I think, for just like helping the members. So anything to do with like making an impact and helping somebody, I've always loved.
Okay.
And so it was just like a different way to, like use my talents that was not just drafting a motion, or I clerked for a few judges before I also had this position. And, that's just like a lot of research and just not
Not a
my
lot of
personality.
interface.
No,
Yeah.
not my personality.
You don't strike me as a sit in an office
No.
kind of gal.
No.
What I have noticed it's been about a year, right, since that you've been our CEO?
Yes.
There has been this whole shift in how we're trying to be perceived. An upgrade. Redid the website, redoing, all the marketing pieces, really making an impact and a statement. And I'm interested to know if that maybe relates back to the spokes model of like just wanting things to be prettier, but I don't want to like minimize it.
Yeah.
Because bringing our association into modern times with a modern look, I think is so far been a huge impact, but that's not all you've done. You've spent about a year. Well, so what happened in the last year? Let's talk a little bit, if you could, about the NAR settlement.
Okay. So
I can just let you start too.
I'll start. So I'll kind of touch on a few things you said, and then I'll go into the NAR stuff. So, when you think about like moving into a position as a CEO, it's really, really, really important to keep the foundation that has the associations have been around for so many years, right? And there's a reason for that. There's like incredible people like the George Peaks of SNR that, have like just done so much for the industry. And and I love, by the way, to like sit down with somebody like that and just like take it all in because they have so much knowledge and so many perspectives that like me moving into this position, like I wouldn't have seen or don't know or understand. But then also it's really important, I think, to take, to have our association and our organization reflective of our membership. And I think that, when, like a lot, realtors are the fabric of every community. When we go in front of the legislature and we lobby these big issues, like we are a powerhouse, and our logo and our presence on social media and our presence in the community, a lot of times people are like, what is Nevada Realtors and what do they even do? And so it's really important for me to try to change and shift the perspective only by personifying and showing who you are and who we are. And so that's where a lot of the new PR and marketing and everything that we're doing is like setting us up so that when we go to the legislature or when we have these different fights like an NAR settlement or these different things, that it's not as though the consumers and the members have to familiarize themselves anymore with who they are, but we're hoping that they'll just start to know who we are, know and understand. And so when I think back to this last year and, you have all these initiatives almost similar to COVID where you think you have a direction of where the year is going to go, and then you're named in 2 lawsuits. And so we were one of the first states to be named in not only one of the copycat lawsuits, but 2. And because of my legal background, it was really important, first to bring our leadership team together even before we were named and kind of just do scenario planning, solid planning, where you're engaging with outside counsel on federal antitrust issues. You're also engaging in corporate counsel who can help guide you because, we're a nonprofit, a 501c6 trade association, but we're run as a business organization, right?
Yeah.
So how do we pivot if the world ends up, crashing around us? How do we show our members what our value is? And so that's been a big shift of, these are the 10 things I wanted to accomplish in the first year. And then you're then fighting, really for us, for our leadership, it was super important as soon as we were named in the lawsuit to make sure that no association kind of left behind, as well as no independent brokers left behind. When I say independent brokers, it's because a lot of the big brokerages had representation on a national level. And so as much as we could help them, they had their own thing going. But for many smaller associations, which is the majority of our state, and many independent brokers, which make up a lot of our biggest brokers in the state, they didn't know what to do, where to turn. And when you're talking to some of these attorneys, one federal antitrust attorney quoted us 1.3 million just to get up to speed on our case and get us through sort of like preliminary motions. And so when you think about the end result, and I know there's been a lot of contention over did NAR settle, did they settle too soon? There was really two options. There was either they were going to settle on their own and everybody else was maybe going to be left behind, or they ended up appealing and everybody else is left behind, or they filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, they reorganize, we all figure out what to do. But again, we're still fighting for ourselves out there. And we as an organization don't have multi-million dollars to fight something for a long haul, even if we believe in the outcome.
Yeah.
And the same with brokers and agents. The agents that were in the know, because there's still a lot of agents that don't exactly know what's been going on or like how things are going to shift. They were kind of scared, right? Like they were like, and they're turning to us. And so it was really important for us to not turn our back on anybody and any questions. And even if our attorneys couldn't represent you, it's like, what can we do? Whether it's with financing or what can we do with our attorney's help or NAR's attorney's help, so that if they're drafting a motion, it's like representing all defendants, not just defendants that can afford to have an attorney represent them.
So kind of made a defendant class as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
not just the plaintiff class, but the defendant class as well.
Exactly.
That's, I think, something overlooked a little bit, is it wasn't just, backing the big names, backing the national brands, but making sure that, the independents in the rurals or even here in town,
Right.
or even down in Vegas, the massive independents are
Right.
taken care of and protected.
Right, absolutely. Because when you're facing litigation at that scale, you really don't know where to start. And even if again, $2,000 an hour adds up very quickly. And if if the research is being done on the same issues, and at some point maybe your interests would diverge, and at that point you have to figure out conflicts and what would happen. But really just to show support how we could, and know we're in this together, because I think that that's such a powerful message that is so much about like who the realtors are. I've always felt that, and which is what I love about working for you guys I love the feeling of community and that we're here to back each other. And I think that we saw a lot of that, again, even though there were so many different, even to this day, I know so many people that I'm friends with that have a way different opinion than I do, or that we had, but you don't know how everything could have turned out. Mm-hmm. But I think at the end of the day, you're hoping that rule changes would be made that didn't significantly impact your business. There's going to be some rule changes. There's going to be some pivoting. Like we knew that a year ago, though. We knew that 2 years. We probably knew that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a time that like industries have to evolve, and I think having like key people like you, like smart, want to be in the know, want to share information, like that's crucial, I think, to again representing our brand, who we are.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in the dark, right?
No.
And share information that's not accurate.
This is my livelihood,
Right.
and my livelihood, fortunately, gets to be involved with helping my community. Mm-hmm. I look at it as a moral duty. Mm-hmm. My community's been very good to me. I have to be very good to it, and that includes the public and my realtor community. Mm-hmm. So I think it's amazing how you crafted that to keep us all together, and also work against all the negative press that's circling around NAR, and then the upstart groups that are saying, well, we're just going to leave NAR. We're going to leave NVR. We're going to leave SNR. Like, I don't know that they see the value. If you could help reiterate what the value of membership in the National Association, in the Nevada Association, in the local associations, what value does that actually bring?
I think that those are all great points. And you think about like our dues, for example, are a coffee, like a monthly coffee, one coffee a month, or what our dues are. And, you think about, I'm going to mention COVID again. During COVID, when so many states were deeming realtors as non-essential, and we're on the front lines actively working on the language that's being crafted that's going to allow for you guys to maintain your business. And obviously it was more challenging. Obviously there are rules around open houses, but we had a seat at the table to make sure that you remained essential, where many states and many counterparts struggled and didn't have that same opportunity. Independent contractor status, or even sales tax on services, or wanting to sell, like have a commission or have a tax in your commissions. And these are all things that we actively like fight for behind the scenes, like on a yearly basis. And for consumers, they don't know that we're the advocacy body for private property rights in the state.
Right.
I think most consumers don't know, if my property taxes didn't go up this year, there's a reason for that. And it's not just happenstance, right?
Yeah.
It's because we're actively fighting to protect homeowners' rights so that they have the ability to do what they wish with their property. So when you sell them this beautiful home and they want to enjoy it the way they want to enjoy it, that we're giving them the opportunity, and you're a part of that. And so I think that the main thing that we do is advocacy, and we're relentless in that. And even if you don't see, sometimes like even during legislative session, we'll say, don't judge us on the first day of session, judge us on the 121st day of session when it all ends, because there's so many, you have to compromise. I think that what you find, and sometimes I'm still naive. This is my 11th year in this role. Obviously, the first 1 year as a CEO, but where I'm like, is that fair? Is that fair that they didn't let us have our testimony, or that they didn't let us, answer a question that was asked? And then like our lobbyists will laugh and they'll say, Tiffany, life's not fair, right? And so so for us, it's important to see all the stakeholders' point of view. And so even if something that passes is not perfect, at least we know we've mitigated as much as we possibly could potential damages.
Potential damages to the
Yes,
public, to property
absolutely.
owners, private property owners.
Absolutely.
That's the forefront of what we do.
Yes.
I go out, I buy and sell homes. That's what people think I do. I go and I have coffee and I buy and sell homes. But no, behind the scenes, what the state association is doing, what the local association does, and what the national association does is protect those rights of private property ownership. A small landlord can charge market rent. Like a lot of folks, that's their retirement. So we want to make sure that we're not getting in the way of that. We're not putting undue burden around homeowners.
And creating a fair and balanced approach.
Agreed.
Because we truly, like we do not want anybody to suffer. Like housing is such a crucial part of our economy. It's such a, like I know you and I have talked about before, just having that safe space to lay your head is so crucial to every human being, right? But sometimes words like affordable housing get tied with words like rent control, and the public and even many of our members don't understand what's good or what's bad. And the answer and the solution oftentimes isn't what message is being put out. It's something like supply. So we need to figure out ways to build more. We need to figure out ways to open up land. We need to figure out ways that permitting processes aren't as difficult, so that we can build affordable housing, that we can get great tenants in, and tenants can thrive there and not struggle.
Yeah.
And then landlords can, again, many of our landlords, mom and pop, we use that term all the time. They're not these big corporate landlords.
Yeah.
So if they don't get paid, or if a water heater goes out and they're living on a fixed income and they can't afford to fix that, like that hurts. Like those are the calls that we get, and then they don't know what to do or who to turn to, and that's their nest egg, right? Like they're relying on that to pay for their health care. And so it's just this fair and balanced approach, right? To like being a decent human being and just making sure that people are taken care of.
I don't mean to laugh. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to like make light of that.
Yeah.
It's just something that we forget about. We forget that we're all in this together
We
and all
are.
living this day the very first time. So where can we work out what is best for the most? And I think that the advocacy that the association does is great. So I want to dive a little bit into how the association is built up.
Okay.
Because for 7 years, I didn't even know how
Okay.
the association worked. I thought it was the locals and then the state and then national. But it's not. It's a three-way agreement among equals, correct?
Yes. So we all provide different member benefits. And so it's really important to almost like we kind of stay in our own lanes as well, but yet we're here to support each other. So the locals, for example, like they're the ones you recognize the most because you have education, you have a lot of resources, often MLS, and so you're often in their building for a lot of different events and activities. They have forms, they have grievance, they have professional standards. And then as a state, most states really limit themselves to advocacy, leadership, and like broker resources.
Okay.
And that's like exactly kind of our wheelhouse. So advocacy is the very top. Like there's not one day that passes that we're not working on some piece of advocacy at some point, whether it's with the governor's office or an attorney general or a secretary of state or the real estate division or some body, right? Like you're always working on something with somebody. And then we have our leadership program,
Yeah.
which we're really excited that you are going to be one of our guest trustees, our official guest trustee for our next program. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
I can't wait.
And the goal of the leadership program is to foster leaders for the future of real estate profession in Nevada. And so it's a very, people are hand selected and they go through this year-long program of transformative growth. And so we'll get to that. But that's, like we want to create solid leaders both for leadership on your local level, on your state level, meaning on committees and on boards, and then at the national level. And there's so many different work groups that we're on, or like presidential advisory groups or task forces. And if you're interested as an agent and and it's a lot, it does take time to be committed to these different things, but how important has it been for you to have a seat at a table, right? Because
massively,
we ask, like we're asking for a lot. I know you're being pulled in a lot of different directions at local and state, but it's important for thought leaders to be there because I can tell you what I think is best for you, but I don't know unless you tell me.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's so many opportunities that for you to be involved, but I think most realtors don't know unless somebody's pulled them in.
Well, I had heard a number, and I don't know if it's accurate, but I think it's only 4,000 active realtors are involved in their association at a certain level out of 1.6 million,
1.13.
Yeah, 1.3.
Yeah.
We'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah.
So having a seat on a committee, serving in a work group, I think gives those who are committed to advancing the profession an outsized voice in shaping what is honestly one of the largest industries in the country.
And when you think about, like we were just in DC, we had they're called Hill Visits. And so we had approximately 80 spots for people from Nevada could go and meet with their delegates in Washington, DC.
Okay.
And every single delegate came and met with us, and they understood housing as a priority. They understood protecting your interests as a priority. They understood the importance of a home buyer and VA loans and FHFA and, like not having anything that would make it more difficult for first-time home buyers. Like there's so many things that like we were in a room and, and we're able to get our points across and they're able to like have this close relationship with us. And nothing was like, really unfamiliar to them, right? Because we have the ongoing relationship. And those are the people in Washington, D.C. that, they'll say like the insurance thing that has come up recently. We're like, do you know that insurance carriers are just canceling insurance? And like, what are you doing about this? And so when I say you kind of stay in your own lane, there's certain things like lead paint disclosure, that's a federal issue, or insurance, it's a federal issue, or flood insurance, a federal issue, or VA buying, federal issue. But we have a voice in that the same way that a local comes to us and says, we say, like, what are your biggest concerns going into this legislative session? And they have a year to kind of get stuff to us. And then a legislative committee comprised of people from across the state make the decision on what you carry, what you work offense, and what you work defense on. And so even though we all do something different, we do work together, and we do have a voice. And for those 80 people in DC, I think it's pretty interesting and fascinating to come back then and be able to share that with other agents or with your consumers. Of, we were sitting in the room with this congressional delegate voicing your concerns, and they listened, and they said, by next Friday at 1:00, I'm going to get an answer for you on certain things. And that's how specific, and that's what kind of relationship we have.
So I know that the VA rule regarding buyer compensation, buyer agent compensation, just got suspended, temporary suspension. Do you think, and you don't have to know, but do you think that that is a direct result of what was going on in DC and the meeting with the congressional delegations and the representatives from VA?
Absolutely, because actually going into that meeting, we heard a far different response of VA's not budging on this.
Okay.
And we were pretty shocked by that, because sometimes it's about education. Like, maybe they just don't know and understand that their rules specifically prohibit a buyer from paying a commission, and maybe they don't quite understand that, but
or the impact of that on that veteran borrower.
But the answer was like, no, they understand that. And we're like, okay, but this is affecting minorities. This is affecting first-time home buyers. Who is this really disabled? Like, and so I absolutely think that the voices were heard loud and clear. And, we go in, like, we don't go in, we go in very intentional. And I think that that's, like, if I have one word for the year, that would be my word. I think that going in with an intention of how you want to move a needle, you're not going to always be successful, but you at least have a goal, right? And so going in to speak with them, we're not just having this person say that person say that. You go in with specific talking points so your voice is stronger. Same thing at the legislature, same thing at county commission that the locals do. They go in with a one voice so that they're able to get their point across on behalf of the larger group, and it's not 50 different opinions. Or 500 or 10,000. We have, almost 20,000 members.
Yeah.
So whatever we are messaging, we're articulating, has to be the message that resonates the most.
You're not going to make everybody happy.
Never.
Especially when you have 20,000 salespeople.
Somebody told me, if you're making everybody happy, you're not doing it right.
I would believe that.
And I like to, and I'm a people pleaser. So to me, I'm like, wait, somebody doesn't like that. But you just have to know that, you just, and also just making a decision and running with it. I think sometimes, and I can also, like, because, balance, again, as an attorney, I can see both sides of a lot. But at the end of the day, when you make a decision and you're it's in the best interest of mostly everybody, that's what you run with.
Yeah. Well, let's circle back to leadership.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's one of the most impactful things that the state might do that people actually get to see, that the agents see. The Nevada Realtors Leadership Academy. Up to 20 people from across the state, 20 members, participate in a year-long program. I know that it's very near and dear to your heart, and we're here to talk to you about the things that are important to you. We all know it's important to me. So tell me why you think leadership is so important, why the Academy is so important. So
I love this program, and that's been moving into the CEO role. I've taken a little bit of a step back, but I'm going to program 2. Okay. So I'm not involved. I still, Amanda, I need to hand over more, but I still did the whole agenda because I can't help myself. So I love leadership and personal development. I think the ripple effect that happens when you make yourself like a better human and you have that desire to, like, touch the world around you in a more intentional way, I think that like, we can't save everybody. Again, we can't stop these terrible things that are happening in the world. But the more you can do in your own life, in your own community, and how you can show up as a leader, and everybody's leadership journey is different. And when we meet, and when we met, through your experience, you're at a different crossroads than somebody else was or is. And what is really cool to me is the shared experience of going through that together creates these bonds.
So strong.
They're so strong. Because I remember you came in, that somebody that like maybe you had done a transaction with and you didn't know how you felt. And then you guys ended up,
like best friends.
yes, becoming so close. And so the leadership program is a year-long program. You meet 4 times a year. And we've talking about evolution of like the association. I took over that program 8 or 9 years ago, and it had been the same program, which had been a tremendous program for the 12 years before. And I'm kind of like, well, what can we keep that is the foundation, and then what can we change for evolving times? And so I'm a firm believer in, if you try it and it doesn't work, at least you've tried it, rather than doing the same thing you feel comfortable. Like if I feel comfortable, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like we're not doing anything.
Yes.
We're not moving. We're not advancing. We're not moving the needle. Not moving the ball down the field.
Exactly. And actually, how we discovered Sundance, which we're going to be at your program that you'll be at in July, is there was a bunch of fires at our location in Lake Tahoe, and it was September of a few years ago. And if you know me, you know that I rarely get like, it takes a lot to get me worked up. But our program's like a week away, and I'm like, don't think we can have that session in Tahoe. So I started calling around and probably called 50 different locations, and finally get this guy Brandon on the phone from Sundance. And I'm like, this is the feel that we need to create. We need this type of energy. We need this type of experience. We need nature. We need classroom style, and we need, an opportunity for them to bond and have their own experience through it. And so he's like, I'll make this happen for you. And so that's how we ended up. So I'm just a firm believer in like things just, again, you can be intentional, but things also just end up working out. And so the speakers that we have that come to this program now are just truly, like, you can't even get some of these people to just come to your session. They're just so like world class, and they stay. What I love, again, we've gone through some that weren't a great fit. Maybe they left after the first like hour or two, like they came in, did their thing, and left. But what I've loved, the environment we've created, is they've stayed, and like they've actually been so engaged in nurturing the process of our leaders going
They're
through.
part of the family. They're part of that small core. And every class is the best class.
Yes.
Because it's building on the class before.
Exactly.
I can just give some testimony about it. I went in thinking that I was going to go learn business tips and tricks and come out better businessman, know how to tie a tie. No, it was a personal journey for me over the course of that year that has resulted in monumental life change. And you were pushing me for it for a while. A couple people were, and I'm glad that I got to be with the class that I was, in the locations that I was, and be able to build new bridges, mend bridges, and really just have that introspection in a place that has good energy, environment, classroom setting. So
watching, like, again, you're such a testament, and not saying the leadership program, because you're a phenomenal human being before that. But I think watching you be so open, and I think that, again, we go out in the world and we sometimes put on this mask, right? Like we have to show up as, for me, like a mom, a CEO, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a friend, like a board member here. Like I'm, like always torn in so many directions, and I have a different, like I have to be, focused on that. But when you're able to just let down your guard, and one of the most beautiful things is just being your most authentic self, right? And like being a part of that journey for you was just so beautiful for me. Like I grow every time, and I feel like I learn so much and become a better person. And I think being open, like you're open to it, right? Like you weren't like, what? And we kind of keep things a surprise for a reason. We don't want you to exactly know what you're going to experience, and not everybody.
Nightmare for me, by the way,
It was.
not knowing what's going on. But I had to make that choice that you're not going to set me up for failure. And I said, I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do it all the way. And I think you get that in every class with most of the folks is they're just going to lean in completely.
And that's the one thing we ask: play all out. Like, what if you didn't worry about how somebody viewed you, or what if you didn't worry about that client that's calling you at 9:00 on a Tuesday? Like, what if you, for yourself, could just take 2 days for yourself, right? And just lean in and experience that. Like, how would that change you? And also, how much better are you able to serve all of those around you? And again, the book, like all these, the movie, like so many things you've done this last year, which most people might never do, right? Or they're scared. We're always, we live in fear often from being judged for, like, again, being who we are. And when you can just be who you are and that's embraced,
Yeah.
like, how beautiful does that feel?
It was amazing. And I remember our dean, when my husband picked me up from the airport, looked at my husband like, he's going to take a couple days to put back together. Sorry, we broke him. I was like, oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally. So I'm honored to be coming back, not just to the program, but specifically to Sundance. So I think I called and told you, like, I have unfinished business to take care of in Sundance. So thank you so much for allowing me to come back and share my journey with this next best class.
Oh, and I know what you're going to experience from the other side now as a trustee. You are going to feel like, prepare him that when you come back this time, you might even be more moved, right? Because you're going to be a part of their transformation, which, knowing you, it's going to be like just so
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm beyond excited.
Good.
So there's a couple things we want to touch on that I
Okay.
just want to bring up as points. You had
Okay.
mentioned the legal helpline. How can people who are members of the association get in touch with somebody who can offer not legal advice,
Legal opinion.
but an opinion?
Yes. And we have great articles and videos. And again, it's part of the initiatives of the new website and all this new branding is to, like, have as much good content that you can share with your other team members or agents. Brokers call us all of the time. They're like, what's that article that was drafted on the SRPD so I can send it to an agent, or what is this? And so having resources that you can also easily share. You can also call the phone number. It's 800-748-6999 or email infoline@nvrealtors with an s.org.
I've done that many times.
And then somebody will call you back, usually within 24 hours. Sometimes they're really quick. And so, yeah, Legal Information Line, absolutely use that resource. We're getting the new leadership applications up on the website in the coming months. So we'll be certain to let you know, so you can share that. We also have a really exciting new project. It's called the Leadership Academy House Build.
Yeah.
And so that's something where you had alumni that had gone through this program, done amazing things, and then that was it. They didn't know, like, they're like, now we lose the bond. How can we keep in touch? And so we created a legacy program several years ago, led by one of our speakers in the program, and we select anywhere from like 15 to 20 alumni, and they pay for their own flights, their own hotel, and we go and we build a house. We could not build a house, and the question is, why don't you build a house here? Because of permits and all the regulations, you couldn't go from ground zero to, like, building a house in 2 days. We go from dirt, people living under tarps, waiting for years and years to have this opportunity, moms walking miles to bus stations or miles to, like, transportation. And we take a group down and we build a house in 2 days. And this group last year was, like, so moved by the family that we went out and we, like, took them shopping for groceries. And for the little girl, the mom didn't even know what size the little girl was, because she'd, like, never taken her to a market.
Okay.
And she was the same age as my daughter, 6. And we got her these little sunglasses, and she wanted this makeup kit. And it was like, again, she didn't even know this world existed. And so that was one of the highlights for me, was getting to share those moments of putting makeup on this little 6-year-old, and she was just so, like, beaming. And again, to have the impact on, like, what they're going to go do and what their sons promise that they're going to go do because they have a roof over their head was just so touching. Just again, being humans in the world and just touching whoever you can in a way that changes their life. And so that's been a new program we've initiated the last several years. And then anything about the NAR settlement, NAR has done a tremendous job keeping everybody updated on facts.realtor.
Okay.
Oftentimes when I go give presentations or I'm sharing information, I'm just constantly checking to make sure that everything's updated because they're the ones that have been in direct contact with the plaintiffs. They know what the settlement agreement means or should mean, and they're coming up with a bunch of new like suggested language for buyer broker agreements for MLSs to use. And I just had a call earlier this week, a broker presentation that George Pickard and April, your CEO here, they were both on. And it was great to just, share all kinds of information because I can, talk about the MLS rules all day long or the changes, but George is the expert. And so, like piggybacking, then April knows everything about form changes, and then we're possibly working on a buyer or broker agreement at the state level. And so,
Okay.
we're all kind of just working together. We're working with many different brokers for input on what their agents are feeling and thinking, and we want, we're open to suggested changes. We always want to continue to grow and evolve and make your life better. So you just have to tell us what you need for us to be able to support that.
Awesome. So that's facts.realtor. That is
Yes.
the complete website.
Yes, we'll make sure you get it. So
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes
Yes.
for you. And probably down there. I don't know.
There.
I don't know much
And then
about YouTube.
You can click, and there's a lot. I mean, sometimes it's like 100 Q&A.
Yeah.
And then we'll continue to update on our social media, anything that we haven't on our website, and we'll come back
Fantastic.
and share as we kind of unveil some more exciting things.
I can't wait. Tiffany, thank you so much for your time,
Sam.
for sharing so much about you. I can't wait to see you in Sundance and hopefully before.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.